all doing well. So I'm really excited for today's video because we're going to be doing a reading challenge, and I decided that I would take it upon myself to read 200 pages every single day for the next week. But I'm not going to be doing it for 7 days. I'm going to be doing it for 5 days, so more like a business, like work week type vibe. And I decided that I would also just be reading Christmas books for the entirety of the week. So I'm going to be selecting books that I talked about in my holiday TBR. So if you want to get more of like a deep dive insight on to what each of those novels are going to be, you can go there. Or I'll just link that video up in the eye. But pretty much the first novel that I want to start off with is It Happened One Christmas by Chantal Guerdin. And we follow around two characters. So we have Zoe Andrews, and pretty much she absolutely loves Christmas. Pretty much she's also like a film director, so she like films and directs like a bunch of like holiday and like Christmassy movies. And then this year she has the opportunity to film one of her own movies. The location that she decides to film it in is Quebec. And then after we get introduced to our next character, and his name is Benoit. Pretty much Benoit is like the mayor of Chelsea, which is like this small cozy town in like Quebec. And Zoe like comes up to him and she's like, you know what, like I'm going to need like a permit to like film here, like I just need like permission. Obviously Benoit's like, you know what, I'm not going to give you the permit because I want to make your life more difficult than it needs to be. Throughout the process of this novel, we're going to read and we're going to see how Zoe is going to try to convince Benoit to allow her to film in Quebec. And to make matters a little more pressing, Zoe has 4 days, exactly 4 days, till she has to start filming this movie in Quebec. And on top of that, there's also a snowstorm that is going to take place that is going to leave both Zoe and Benoit like stranded together. So they're gonna have to like find some sort of way to like work together to get out of that situation. And in the process of the two of them kind of being in that forced proximity situation, we're going to see if Benoit is going to, you know, give in and like allow Zoe to like film in Quebec, or whether he's going to absolutely shatter her dreams, or whether the two of them are going to realize that maybe they have feelings for each other, or maybe they don't actually hate each other as much as they actually think they do. So that is kind of like the overall synopsis of It Happened One Christmas. I again really do like the cover. It's a cute little animated one. So this is the first novel we're going to start off with reading, so let's go. A little bit now. I think I've been reading for like an hour and a half. Currently on page 58, chapter 4, and I've really been enjoying the book. I really like it. So right now where I'm currently at is Zoe is in Quebec, and she's doing a bunch of like scouting, and she's looking for like places in which she can film her movie. And then she also runs into Benoit as well, so they've officially met at this point in the novel. Zoe found herself in a difficult situation and Benoit came to the rescue. And then after, Zoe was visiting this Christmas tree farm because she really wanted to film there, and then she also came to the realization that Benoit actually owned the Christmas tree farm. So she was kind of under the impression that because they kind of had a really good initial like encounter, that he'd be chill, he'd let her film there. But then he was like, no, I don't want you filming on my Christmas tree farm, which she was like, oh my goodness. But like, you know what I mean, like what is she gonna do? So some things that I really like about the novel is I feel like with Chantal's writing, the book is really fast paced. Like I've been sitting here and I've been reading for a bit, but it doesn't feel like I've been reading. It honestly feels like I've been watching a movie. And I feel like that's when I feel like personally I really like a book, when I'm reading a book and it doesn't feel like I'm reading, but it more so feels like I'm watching a movie. That's what it feels like when I'm reading this novel, which I absolutely love. So it's very fast paced. Another thing that I also really appreciate about the novel is once again the attention to detail, and I absolutely love that with this novel, especially because the novel is based in Quebec. And I love how when she goes to like the Christmas tree farm, she's like the author, or Chantal, is like describing how everything just looks so cozy and wintry, and like, you know what I'm saying, like she just goes into detail about like the Christmas scenery, and I feel like it makes me feel as though I'm actually there with Zoe, which I really do appreciate. The Christmas vibes in this book are immaculate, which I absolutely love. Like I've seen pictures of what Quebec looks like during like the holiday season and Christmas, and it looks phenomenal. It looks stunning. It looks beautiful. So being able to read about that in the book is just really wholesome, and I really like it. I'm currently on page 204, so I finished my 200 pages yesterday. But I feel like I've also come to the realization that this, I don't know why it took me this long to put piece 2 and 2 together, but this is definitely like a slow burn romance. And I like it. I really do. I think one thing I appreciate is I like seeing Zoe and Ben together in like difficult situations, because it's obviously because they're not in a relationship, but I guess like it's just putting them to the test, so we're really getting to see like their personalities. Like one thing I really appreciate about Benoit is how just patient and kind he is. There's a specific scene in the book, there's a specific event in the book that takes place where they're kind of like stranded and they need to find like shelter. They need to find a warm place to stay because like the snowstorm is currently happening, and Zoe has to learn a new skill. And even though like her and Benoit have kind of had their differences, and it's not to say that they necessarily got into an argument, but they've more so disagreed on things in the past or in like previous chapters, it's really refreshing to see how he's just really kind and patient in teaching her how to not master, but how to like achieve and do the skill that she needs to do in order for them to get to like a place where they can seek shelter. So I really appreciated that. Even though she's not the best at what she's doing or learning, he's just really kind and he's really patient and he's offering help and assistance, which I really do love. They're kind of just letting things flow. They're letting things happen. They're not forcing a romance, and it's not something that's like, you know, charged but like passion and like physical attraction. I just love how they're taking the time to really get to know each other, and I feel like through that process they're gonna learn to truly love each other on a deeper level. Maybe that might happen, maybe that might not happen. Oh my goodness, I just finished It Happened on Christmas, or It Happened One Christmas. It was good. It was good. I enjoyed the read. A few things. I'm gonna start with a lot of things that I enjoyed. So first and foremost, in terms of like the characters that we had in the novel, we had Zoe and then we also had Benoit. A few things that I really appreciated about Zoe's personality is Zoe was a fighter. I loved how when she wanted something and she had a goal and she had a dream, she was determined and she would go after it, even if she did face struggles and hardships. She still had that heart and that will to persevere and to overcome the struggles that she was facing. Now, I'm not gonna lie, there are definitely points in the novel where her perseverance was tested and things got a little more challenging, but overall, I just appreciate how she was a go-getter. In terms of Benoit, I really liked Benoit as a character. I felt like he was really funny, he was sarcastic, he was witty, and he was really patient. Another thing I absolutely appreciated was how Benoit just talked about Christmas. I loved how he brought up all of like the traditions and the Christmassy things that he did with his family during the holiday season. Reading about that, especially now that like, you know, Christmas is approaching, just made me want to experience Christmas even more. So I absolutely enjoyed that as well. Another thing that I really loved about the novel is because it was based in Quebec, they touched on a lot of like Quebecois traditions. And I even remember doing some of this stuff at school. Like there was one specifically where there's this Quebec candy, and pretty much it's made from like maple syrup, and you take like the hot maple syrup and then you roll it over snow, and they made that in the book, and it just reminded me of when I used to do it when I was in elementary. So I felt like that was like really wholesome, and it was nice because I feel like I was able to connect to the characters in that way and on that level. Oh, another thing that I also really appreciate about the novel is it has a cute little Christmas playlist in the back here. I absolutely love reading books that have playlists in them because then I can play them as I'm reading. Hello friends, so where did the book go? Okay, so the next novel that I'm going to be reading is All I Want for Christmas by Maggie Knox. So pretty much the two characters we follow around are Sadie and Max. They're contestants that have been entered into like a really popular singing reality TV show in their hometown in Nashville. It's called Star Maker. When contestants are in the competition, they're paired into like duets. People really like Max and Sadie as a couple, but in reality they actually can't stand each other. So through this novel, we're gonna kind of see them work through like the enemies to lovers. I guess you could say enemies to lovers because this is a romance novel. We're gonna see them work through their like dynamic and the relationship because they obviously can't stand each other, as it says here. Potentially they might develop feelings for each other, or maybe they might end up hating each other. I don't know, but we're pretty much gonna read this novel to find out what takes place. Wait, does each chapter? No. It's a dual POV? My goodness. Okay. That's exciting. Okay. I like that. I like that. So sad. I was reading this on the bus and I brought it to school. I put it in my backpack and it accidentally got hold it. I'm so upset, but there's not really much that I can do about it. Anyways, I have completed the second day of the reading challenge. So when I finished It Happened One Christmas, it didn't end on 400 pages exactly, so I need to read 85 pages from this novel to complete that portion of reading. So I finished the 85 pages, and oh my goodness, I've never read a book by Maggie Knox before, but I am really enjoying this novel. Like right off the bat, I really love Maggie's writing style. I find that it's fast-paced, it's easy to read. It doesn't feel like I'm reading when I'm picking up this book, which I truly do enjoy, and I feel like that's when you know an author is good at what they're doing, when they make reading their book feel like it feels like light work. It really does. And I feel like I'm putting the book down because I have to, not because I want to, because there's other stuff that I have to get done. I really appreciate how within the first chapter, the ball is already rolling. We're introduced to the characters. The plot has already been established. Another thing is, I feel like when I'm taking this novel and comparing it to other Christmas books, I feel like in some other Christmas books that I've read so far, it places like a big emphasis on describing the things that are around them, like the scenery and how everything looks so Christmassy. In this novel, that's not the case at all. I feel like, yes, obviously, like the novel is taking place during Christmas because it explicitly says that. I love how there isn't like a big emphasis on describing the scenery. In terms of our two characters in this novel, we are following around Sadie and Max. I've seen them interact, and it's evidently like there is a spark between the two of them. They do like each other, they have feelings for each other. I don't know, I just feel like in that case the storyline feels like it's being dragged on. But with this novel specifically, even though there is a miscommunication trope, there's other elements that kind of support the storyline. So it's like, okay, it's not just a miscommunication trope, because there's also like a relationship of convenience, and there's also forced proximity. So I feel like bringing all those things together kind of adds a bit more to the storyline, so it doesn't necessarily feel like the only thing that is like preventing these two characters from being together is the fact that they're not sitting down and just talking about the way that they feel. One thing that I've really been enjoying throughout reading the novel is like the little bits that we get where we see Max and Sadie like interact and talk about their past and kind of just open up more on an emotional level. I'm really going to be looking forward to seeing the two of them do that later on in the novel, because I definitely know that that's coming. So I finished reading another 200 pages, currently on page 286, but I was supposed to finish at 285 because for the first half of this I read 85 pages in the book, and then now I'm on to page 286. But pretty much how I feel about this so far, because I'm basically done the novel. All I have left is this very small portion, and then I'm pretty much done. Sadie and Max, like you can tell that they really love each other, they care for each other, the passion is there. But the thing that is kind of like annoying me is the miscommunication. Because I remember I had mentioned this earlier, I was like, I'm not the biggest fan of miscommunication tropes. I saw it playing out in the beginning. I kind of thought it would kind of be like a one and done moment, like we wouldn't see it again. But it continues to reoccur, and as I said before, I don't really like miscommunication tropes because they drag on the storyline and they make the story longer than it needs to be, in my opinion. And with this specific story, I'm finding that like in the beginning, Max and Sadie, like they would find themselves in a situation where they would have like a disagreement, or they would like argue about something, or they just wouldn't be on the same page, and like they would kind of like brush things off. And like the first time it happened, I was like, okay, that's fine. The second time it happened, I was like, okay. And then the third time it happened, I was like, okay, we need to wrap this up. Because I feel like there's a lot of problems that they have in their relationship, which I understand, like all couples are going to go through problems, and you know, you're going to argue and there's going to be difficulties. But I feel like every single time they're in a situation where they could address the elephant that's in the room, they willingly choose not to. And I'm just like, why are you doing this? I just feel like because of that, there's a bunch of like smaller problems that just continue. I guess not necessarily small, but there's a bunch of problems that continue to arise, and I feel like it's kind of just like a snowball effect, because it just keeps piling on, building onto each other, and it's just like they have all these problems and like they don't necessarily know how to solve them, when it's like if you just sat down and talked, we wouldn't be here. Apart from that, I'm not really the biggest fan of the two of them as a couple, because in the beginning I thought that they were like, oh my goodness, really sweet, cute, wholesome, but again, I think it's just the miscommunication that is really like bothering me. And on top of that, it's like I find that these two as a couple, like they will do anything but just have a conversation about what needs to be said. And on top of that, they always assume the worst in each other too, which I kind of sit here and I'm just like, that's kind of sad though, if like something happened and like your partners automatically assume the worst of you, and it's like they just jump to conclusions way too fast before they even like sit down and talk about like the way that they feel. I feel like as a couple, why do I feel like I'm giving like counseling and like relationship advice? They're really great together when things are amazing and happy in a relationship. Obviously, like you're never going to be in a relationship where things are always good and you're always happy. I really feel like when they do go through those moments where they really need to like trust each other or open up more on an emotional level, like I feel like that's where they kind of have a disconnect, and I feel like that's right now where we're seeing the two characters trying to like work that through, and we're trying to see like Sadie and Max build that emotional connection in their relationship, because it is severely lacking. And I do strongly feel like by the time I get to the end of the novel, they will work that out, and they will have that like conversation where they'll sit down and they'll just address and talk about everything. So I just finished reading All I Want for Christmas by Maggie Knox, and overall I enjoyed it as a read. I guess we'll start off with things that I didn't enjoy throughout the novel. I think the biggest thing was just the miscommunication trope, as I've said before. I just don't really like the trope, to be honest. So I personally prefer when the two characters like each other and they make it clear. They don't really allow miscommunication to like get in the way of them like pursuing each other and whatnot. But that was really the only thing that I like disliked about this novel. Another thing that I also realized when I finished this book is, although the novel is called All I Want for Christmas, I felt like the more I read it, it didn't really feel like a Christmassy book. Like, I do understand that like it took place in December and it was during Christmas, but it more so felt like I was reading a regular romance book and Christmas just happened to have taken place while these two characters were together. And I feel this way because in the other Christmas books that I've read, like the authors have taken like a considerate amount of time throughout the novel to like really describe like the scenery and to explain how it looked all Christmassy. And the characters also did like a lot of Christmassy activities, and in this novel that didn't really take place. Like, there was only one part, or like I guess like two chapters, I guess you could say, because when they went on the trip to Banff, as it says here, that was the only time where it really felt like it was like Christmassy and they were doing Christmas stuff. So I feel like if you're reading this because you want to like feel or experience that Christmas ambiance, I feel like this wouldn't give you that. But I'm not against that. I don't hate that. Overall, that is All I Want for Christmas by Maggie Knox. So we are now on to the final book, I believe, for this reading challenge. I will put up how many pages I've read, and if I am doing the math correctly, which I will double check on this novel, which is A Perfect Hours by Leah Lois, should technically be the last novel that I read for this reading challenge. So in All I Want for Christmas, after I had finished reading page 258, I only had 36 pages left in this novel. So for this read, in order for me to reach the 200 pages today, I have to read up until page 164, which in this novel I believe is chapter 20. So I have to read this much today. So there's also that. But in this novel, we follow around two characters. We have Noelle and we have Sam. So pretty much it's like the middle of January. Noelle is driving back from a college event. A disaster strikes because there's this big blizzard. It starts snowing really bad and heavily, so the roads end up getting closed. Noelle is stranded. She doesn't have water, food, and she also doesn't have cell service as well. She begins to panic. And then there happens to be another person that's also stuck in the same situation, and his name is Sam. So pretty much they decide, you know what, we might as well just spend the next 8 hours together. So they spend the next 8 hours together. The next day, the roads get cleared, but they do go their separate ways. Fate has something else in mind as the two keep serendipitously bumping into each other, and they begin to realize that perhaps there truly is no such thing as coincidences. So I am going to be interested to read kind of like the things that take place within the first 8 hours, and then when the two characters do go their separate ways, I'm going to be really curious to see what events bring them closer together and what allows them to realize that, hey, maybe like we're a perfect match, or we could be together. And I'm also interested to see like what conflict is going to take place, because right now it doesn't really like outline anything about the conflict, and it's kind of just they go their separate ways and then they meet again. So that's going to be very interesting to see. But I'm going to start this novel and read it. Okay, you know what time it is. I am going to sit down and talk about A Perfect Hours by Leah Lois. I have a lot of things to say about this novel, and it definitely surprised me. So right off the bat, as I said before, it was a novel going into it, which I understand that is wholeheartedly my fault, because I heavily judged the book just solely based off of the cover. And I guess like the synopsis, because of the way that it was written, I kind of just assumed it was going to be a cute little Christmassy holiday read, but it was anything but that. It had nothing to do with Christmas at all. I guess you could say it was more of like a wintry read, I guess you could say. But pretty much things that I enjoyed about the novel, I liked the pacing and I liked the writing style. I found that it was really easy easy for me to read. It didn't take a lot of like mental energy to get through the book. The chapters were very short, which I really did appreciate. I found myself honestly flying through this novel. Another thing I really appreciated was the character change that I saw in Noelle from the beginning of the book to the end of the book. I found that Noelle in the very beginning of the book, she was very much living in the past. She heavily struggles with people pleasing, and I feel like because of that, it was something that truly held her back. She definitely has a genuine kind heart in which she loves to truly just help the people and care for the people that are in her lives, but I also felt like it was also like her biggest downfall as well, or it's what led to her downfall, in a sense where she would help people so much that she wouldn't help herself at all, and it costed her a lot of opportunities and it prevented her from doing a lot of things that she was truly passionate about. But I really did appreciate how throughout the novel we get to see Noelle take more of a sense of ownership over her life and learn how to find that balance between like helping the people that you love but not being a people pleaser, and also learning how to take care of herself. Another thing I also noticed about Noelle is she was very fearful of taking chances and just stepping into new areas of her life that she was not the most confident or familiar with, I guess you could say, which again, I feel like that was something that I could relate to as a reader. I feel like Noelle in of herself is a very relatable character because of the things that she struggles with, struggling with like anxiety, peer pressure, and seeing all of these like struggles being played out through her as a character. I feel like is another reason why I like this novel, because I can easily relate to Noelle as a character. Another thing that I also saw too is I really found it really interesting the way that Leah talked about relationships and moving on from relationships and just comfort zones. I could definitely tell that Noelle was the type of character that she just really loved her comfort zone, and she was always willing to run back to it regardless of the consequences that came with it. And that's definitely something that I saw very prevalent in her behavior in the very beginning of the book. But I really appreciated how halfway through the novel she sat down and she really had like an honest conversation with herself, and she's like, is this the life that I really want? Is this the person that I want to be with? And is this the type of way that I want to live my life? And seeing her go from that position where she was like, you know what, I'm not going to stay in my comfort zone, I'm going to push myself, even if it means that there's going to be a level of uncertainty, even if it means that things might not turn out the way that I want to, I'm still going to take that leap of faith, and I'm still going to go and pursue things that make me scared, whether that's pursuing a new relationship or investing her time in like a new hobby or something that she's really passionate about. I really enjoyed seeing her take that leap of faith, and I found that to be just so refreshing, and I just felt so happy for her as a reader. So being able to see her go through that transition was something that was just so satisfying. And then with Sam too, it was just really interesting to see how her and Sam just kept running into each other, coincidentally, I guess you could say. And I really did appreciate how both Sam and Noelle really pushed each other to be the best versions of themselves, and they both had their own like life experiences that they've been through, but I really appreciated how they could how they could really relate to each other. And I feel like that's one thing that honestly brought the two of them together. Yes, they did find each other attractive, but I really appreciate how that wasn't the main premise of this novel. I really do appreciate how they were there for each other in those times in which they were struggling to overcome like the hardships that they had faced in their past, and they really just gave each other that room to just be open and honest about the way that they felt. But then also they sat down and like helped each other work through whatever struggles and hardships that they were facing, and I really appreciated seeing the two of them do that. And again, I felt like when they were both in each other's lives and present and interacting with each other, they really did make each other better. And I don't know, they're just so cute together, which I really do appreciate. But that is A Perfect Hours by Leah Lois. That means that I am officially done reading 200 pages. This challenge was one that I truly underestimated. This was harder than I expected and anticipated, although I did enjoy it, and I read a lot of novels. Not a lot, but I feel like I did read a significant amount. Again, this was a challenge that really pushed me, and I enjoyed it. It was difficult, but I definitely did enjoy it, and this might be something that I might do again in the future. But thank you so much for watching, you guys, and I will see you guys again next time. Bye!